gonna teach you how to dance? Who's gonna show you how to fly? Who's gonna call you on the lame dope smoking slacking little sucker you are?
The YouTube shooting. It's an interesting and important event, I think, at least so far as online media and YouTube in particular go. Nasim Aghdam is the shooter. She's apparently rather eccentric, shall we say, and there's been a lot of rather irresponsible speculation and attempts to claim and blame and so on going around. Obviously, I'm going to be speculating as well. I'm going to try and do so in a more responsible fashion, I think, and to point out some of the bad things that are going on in trying to claim and blame her for one particular cause or another. What do we know so far? She was a YouTuber. She was very active on social media. She talked a huge amount about the problems of the apocalypse, declining views and so on her channel. She only had something like 5,000 subs, but was apparently getting at least semi-regularly well over 100,000 hits on videos of hers. I guess there's a big Farsi community out there somewhere that I was unaware of. This whole case reminds me, we can't help but draw parallels to our own experience, but it reminds me of what happened with the Discovery Channel shooter, who was someone I knew on a defunct social network called Tribes. And he was unhinged, but seemed to be only eccentric and relatively harmless, and he kept coming to the groups on there with these crazy schemes, and we would try to talk him down and talk some sense into him, never thinking that anything like what happened would happen. But it did. She seems to be a similar kind of eccentric. She was fixated on animal welfare, animal rights, and got obsessed with her channel and the statistics there. And one of the earliest speculations that came forward, even before we knew the gender or race or anything else of this person, was that it was workplace violence, that she had gone postal, if you like. And if anyone thinks that mass shootings are a new phenomenon, the fact that going postal is, part of our vocabulary should inform you that it's older than you think, because that goes back a fair way. From what we've seen so far, that seems to be somewhat accurate. But YouTube is in a weird position like that. I mean, basically it employs us. I'm going to get... Well, I'm probably not going to get paid for this video because it's talking about a current event and a tragedy. That's a whole other kettle of fish. But, we get paid for working for them. We provide the content. They sell the ad space. And the YouTube Red subscriptions and so on, of which we get a little cut. So they're effectively employing people, but you select for yourself whether you are to be employed by YouTube in a lot of ways. But it's still a worker and boss relationship, and a lot of the changes and so on that they have been doing recently have screwed a lot of people over. And when people did go postal, it was often because they were being fired, or because their working conditions were becoming unreasonable, or grudges and problems with the boss. Now, I don't say any of this to excuse what happened, but to try and explain and get to the motivation of the shooter. Clearly they were unhinged, that kind of goes without saying. But something must have pushed them over that edge and set them off. And it seems to me that it is this going postal phenomenon that seems the most relevant, over and above anything else. When things like the recent changes and so on at YouTube happen, when the adpocalypse and so on happen, I think it's good to remember that these things can have a massive impact on real and actual people, even if they're not present in a YouTube office somewhere. They are people that in essence work for YouTube. And when you change the rules of the game, when you change the contract of employment, you can ruin people, you can impoverish people, you can throw people into penury, you can silence and censor people who want to have a voice. And when you've founded your platform on being free and open to anyone, when you start to change that, you start to have a very powerful and negative influence. Should anyone be able to say anything, calls to violence and so on? No, you know, there are limits. I think just about everyone can agree on with free expression. But I think things have gone a bit too far. Again, this isn't to excuse, this is an attempt to understand. This was a person with eccentric viewpoints who felt that they were being silenced. It's a person who had obviously invested a lot of time and energy into what they were doing, and felt like they were being cut off, silenced, fired, essentially, by someone who had changed the rules of the game on them, and as a result they lashed out in violence. And this is far from the first time. Should YouTube have done anything different? No, I don't think so, at least not on the basis of this. I don't think we can allow this kind of outlying backlash to guide our thinking, but I did think it's worth remembering that when things like this happen, it does have this real effect on real people. And that seems to have been forgotten even on a corporate level because of the illusory distance that the internet creates. There's a lot of really ill-informed and frankly dangerous speculation going on. I know I'm speculating. I know I'm talking about, I guess, my pet issues through this, but they do seem to be relevant. But I've seen people trying to claim that they're transgender. I don't know whether that's true or not. They definitely pass if they were. I can see why they might think that, but the reasons for this seem to be on the far right, to try and claim that it's degeneracy and immorality that leads to things like this, and amongst the TERFs on the far left, it's to disown a female shooter, to try and say that, no, they were a man. I don't think that's particularly relevant whether it turns out that they were transgender or not. They were Iranian, so some people are trying to claim it's yet another act of Muslim terrorism, but in this case that doesn't appear to be the case. I think the involvement in activism is far more relevant, especially the extreme end of animal rights activism. That speaks to a mindset, at least, even if not the trigger for it. And apparently, according to some reports, she was an Iranian Christian, not a Muslim, so that doesn't pan out either. We've also got the usual kind of conspiracy morons trying to say this is a false flag that will be used to justify more YouTube censorship against whichever particular socio-political group they happen to align themselves with. On all of these things, you have to wait. I know that goes against every fibre of our 24-hour news cycle and reaction videos like this and so on, but you really do. If you want to draw any definitive conclusions, you have to wait. You have to wait for the facts to come out. You have to wait for more information to come through, and maybe the shooter in question has a confession or a video diary or something somewhere telling us explicitly why they did what they did. And I know it's hypocritical for me to be speculating, but from what I've seen, based on the evidence that is available, it does seem to me that this is essentially a disgruntled worker incident, someone who went postal. And I think we as YouTubers and YouTube as a company will need to grapple with that fact. I think it throws new light on the relationship between content creators and YouTube, between policy and people's lives, between revenue and people's lives, and just how important creative outlets for your voice can be to people. You can tell I'm rusty making videos, can't you? Zang. Old Fat Punks is part caper, part comedy, part nostalgia, and part commentary. It follows 3 aging punks as they build themselves up for one big, nihilistic last hurrah. You can buy Old Fat Punks at Amazon, Drive-Thru Fiction, or Lulu.com. Follow the links below or search on those sites.